So is this working?
I hope so.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is anyone listening? Can you hear me?
All right.
Last year we had what happened last year?
Well, listen.
Let me conduct this interview.
No, I will tell you. My wonderful cameraman put the phone in his pocket, the one that was recording.
It locked itself.
It locked itself, pushed the button. Yeah.
My phone records while it's in slot.
Yeah.
We did an interview.
Yes, that's true.
And I don't think it's immodest to say it was the best interview you have ever participated in. And it was one of the greatest performances I've ever given.
That's true.
And then at the end of the interview, we discovered that we hadn't recorded it. It was almost 3 hours long.
Yeah, that's true.
And you were weeping because it had been so moving.
I've been traumatized ever since.
Learned, but the experience, you learned things about yourself and about the world, and we both connected deeply. And then we recorded another one, a follow-up interview that was pathetic. And I'm sorry for that.
It's okay.
Yeah, I just had that's all I had. Anyway, hopefully this one will be recording.
I hope so too. Well, last year when we spoke, you did say, when we speak again, which you doubted we ever would, which has kept me up at night, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, the universe works in mysterious ways, so here we are.
Yeah.
You wanted me to introduce you in a very specific way.
Yes.
So let's do that.
Okay.
Okay. We are here with New York Times bestselling poet, actor, baker, and candle maker. Yes, I've been looking at your TikTok account. Misha Collins, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for that one lovely introduction.
I know. I know. So since our last conversation, a lot has happened because you've been announced as part of the Boys cast.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Trump getting elected.
Well, if you want, but I'm not sure if we should dive into it. You can talk about that if you want.
Well, it really sucks.
I know.
And
I agree.
It's basically like the apocalypse, but it's actually happening in the real world. The Boys, it's interesting that you mention it, but The Boys is a parable of a Trump regime. It's a commentary on a Trumpian world. Mm-hmm. And as the show evolves, it gets more and more the main bad guy on the show becomes more and more like a Trump-like American autocrat.
Yeah.
So it's a very prescient show in that respect. I think it's a great show. Mm-hmm. Not the Trump show.
No.
But The Boys.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun to get to go back and play with Jared and Jensen and Eric Kripke. Eric Kripke was on set when we were on set, so we got to really have a real reunion.
Yeah.
It was cool.
That is cool. As you've already mentioned, The Boys is known for its sharp political satire and also the boundary-pushing storylines. Were there any creative challenges or risks that you took that differ from other roles that you've played in the past?
Well, I try not to take any creative risks.
Okay.
Yeah. It's hard to talk about without really spoiling anything, but there were a few things that we did in this episode that were uniquely challenging for me. I can't tell you why. Next time. When we meet again.
Which will definitely happen.
Because now we've mended fences. I think then I can tell you about what the challenge was.
All right.
Okay, so just take a note and we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, but can you tell us more about how you prepared for the show?
I didn't prepare.
You just walked
on
set?
No, that's actually not true, but it was actually a funny thing that happened because Jared and I drove in together to set on the first day of filming. We were filming on a Friday, and then we were going to have the weekend off, and we were going to film for another few days the next week. And we were driving in, and the order of scenes that we had to do that day for filming, we were going to just be filming some stunts.
Yeah.
And actually, we had checked in with the first AD in advance and been like, hey, are we for sure just doing stunts? It says there's no dialogue today. Is that true? We're definitely just doing stunts. And the first AD was like, yep, checked with the director. We're just doing the stunts. And so Jared and I hadn't really learned our lines. We're driving in, we're talking about the two characters. Our characters have some interaction together. We're talking about the characters and talking about how maybe over the weekend we would get together and like work on really developing some of the nuances of the relationship between these two characters, because it could play out nicely on the screen. And we got to set, and the director was like, okay, everybody, we're not going to do the stunts actually after all. We're going to do just the dialogue. And Jared and I looked at each other like, oh, fuck. Does anybody have the script handy? So we had to scramble to learn our dialogue and catch up, because it was not what had been on the schedule for the day. But we got through it.
Okay, that's good. And we will see soon.
Yes.
When it's coming out?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, well, we'll see it when it comes. Okay. I don't want to make you feel old, but you started your acting career in the late 90s?
In another century, in another millennium.
I know.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay.
What do you remember most vividly?
Well, I don't
that
remember
era?
anything vividly because I'm so old. That's the problem.
I'm sorry
But
for bringing that up.
this is actually, maybe we won't meet again now that you mention it.
I can
This
leave
is
if
not
you want.
going well at all.
I'm sorry. But you look great. You look.
We will meet again after all.
You don't look a day over 35.
Thanks for acknowledging that.
Yes, you're welcome.
So what was the question? I don't remember.
So what do you?
It's my short-term memory that goes first.
That's okay. What do you remember most vividly about that era in your life? And is there a role or audition from that time that taught you a lasting lesson from the industry or about the industry?
Yeah, okay. Here's a Comic-Con story for you.
Okay.
Wait, tell me if I told this before. Did I tell you my story about Anakin Skywalker?
No.
Okay. This is a long story. It's going to take about an hour.
It's fine.
But it's okay.
I'll make myself comfortable.
So I was a young actor. I just moved to LA. I had barely done anything. But my agent called and said, they have an audition for you. It's for the role of Anakin Skywalker. You're meeting with the casting director. And I was like, oh, what? Holy shit. Okay. So I went in to meet with the casting director. There was normally they give you sides. They're called sides. It's like the audition material, and you learn a couple of scenes, and then you go in and you do the scenes, and they see if they like you as the character. But there were no sides. So I figured there was like a super secret script that they didn't want to give to anybody. But I got there, and the casting director just set up a camera like your camera, sat down like you're sitting down, and we just talked. And she asked me questions about my life, and I told her about like growing up, and about a month later, my agent called again and said they really liked your tape, and George Lucas wants to meet you up at Skywalker Ranch. And at this point, there were only 4 people in consideration for the role of Anakin Skywalker, and I'm one of the 4.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then my agent said, but Misha, I got to tell you, you can't tell anyone. Because at this point, it was like front page news. Who's going to be the Anakin Skywalker? This is for the second prequel, whatever the fuck movie that was.
Yeah.
So they had done the movie with the like 7-year-old Anakin Skywalker. And then this one was the next one.
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
Yeah.
It was Clone Wars.
You knew that.
So you can't tell anyone. They're keeping it super secret. In fact, the kid that they cast as young Anakin Skywalker originally, he told somebody that he got cast, and they fired him, and the kid that was in the movie was their second choice, just to put the fear of God in me. So I have to fly up to San Francisco, and the driver is picking me up and driving me about an hour and a half north to Skywalker Ranch, and I'm not even allowed to tell the driver who works for Skywalker Ranch why I'm going up there. That's also a secret. I have to. They give me a made-up story to tell him about how I'm going to the sound stages to do some like looping session. So I get up there. I got up there a little early. It's like this beautiful college campus, and I walk around the grounds for a little bit because my meeting with George Lucas isn't for a little while. And I'm like in the woods and looking at this just like beautiful pastoral landscape. There are like llamas like dotting the hillside there. And I go, while I'm wandering around in the woods, I accidentally step in a stream. So I was like trying to cross the stream and I slipped. So I go in to meet with George Lucas. My pant leg from like halfway down my shin is soaking wet, and so is my shoe. And I go in and I meet with George Lucas, and I get to play with Luke Skywalker's like real lightsaber that they actually used on the set, and it was like this very surreal experience. But the casting director was there as well, and she was like trying to prompt me to tell some of the stories that I had told before, but me, like this dumb kid, was thinking like, well, I'm not going to tell the same stories twice. I already told them to her. But of course, she hasn't relayed the stories to me. She was waiting for me to do it myself. So the lesson, you asked like a lesson. The lesson was, you don't get a second chance. So you got to fucking get it right the first time. But there's more to this story. So I finished my hour chat with George Lucas, and I have some time before my flight. So the same driver drives me back towards San Francisco, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to kill some time in town. And on the drive, I had my cell phone with me, and I'm like, I want to call my best friend and just tell him, like, you won't believe it. I was just auditioning for the Anakin Skywalker role, but I don't do it because I don't want to fuck it up. So we get into San Francisco, and I walk into this little pizza place, and there's this, I had to order a slice of pizza, and I get a slice of pizza, and this like, pimply-faced teenager behind the counter says, what do you want? And I say, I want a cheese pizza, but can I just tell you something? I just have to tell somebody. I was just up at Skywalker Ranch meeting with George Lucas. I was playing with Luke Skywalker's real lightsaber. Isn't that amazing? And he goes, no way. That's awesome. My cousin is Natalie Portman. My parents own the llama farm adjacent to Skywalker Ranch. What's your name? And I say, Misha Collins. Like it just came out of me like the worst possible person to tell this thing to. Anyway, that's my story about an audition that I learned two lessons from. Shut your mouth and you don't get a second chance.
Yeah. Wow. That could have changed the trajectory.
I know, I could have had a career.
Yeah. I mean, now you're here with me. I mean, it's the next best thing. So, okay, I was on TikTok, and you're very, very popular on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen all the fan edits they make of you.
I haven't.
No?
No.
Don't watch them.
Okay.
No. Anyway, I read a comment on TikTok that said, I don't know if Misha Collins is just a great actor or if he just throws everything he has into a scene. This is a real comment. So I was wondering, how has your understanding of your performance evolved since your early days? And what is your process in dealing with the emotional scenes? For example, Castiel's death in Supernatural, which was very emotional, especially for a lot of fans.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have like a real well-honed process. I think it changes quite a bit. And I experiment with different things and try different things and try to keep it interesting for me. And sometimes I feel like I do things that work, and sometimes I feel like I do things that don't work. Mm-hmm. And I definitely feel like I'm still learning as I go. But one of the great things about, you mentioned my senior nature, like how old I am. And as I get older, I notice that I give a shit less about what other people think about me. And that actually really helps with acting, because your self-consciousness, for me anyway, self-consciousness led to insecurity, and it also led to less free performances. So as I get older, I think I'm a little bit more able to just try things and be willing to fuck up and not be so self-judgmental, which helps me I think I'm a little bit better of an actor because of that fact than I used to be.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I also noticed a little bit that most characters that you play, they are quite morally complex.
Yeah.
What attracts you to characters like that?
Well, the fact that they're the jobs that I get, typically. I think people see me as a morally ambiguous character in real life, and then they're like, well, he'd be perfect for this. He's not fully evil, but he's definitely morally compromised as an individual, so he can play this role.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we have time for one last question. Ever since our last interview, I've noticed that you have quite a passionate fan base. And they've been following your work across mediums. How does your audience impact your creative decisions? Do you feel like you have to surprise them in the work that you do, or that you have to challenge them in a way? For example, you are very outspoken about a lot of things.
You know, it's I sometimes I make jokes. They're not very good jokes, but sometimes I make jokes. But I'll try to answer your question seriously. Because I think it's a little bit interesting for me to reflect on that. My reflex response is, I'm not doing things for the fans. I'm just trying to be authentic, or just trying to be myself. But the truth is, I think I do run a filter. And I'll give you an example, like about being outspoken about things. Sometimes living in this Trump apocalypse that we're going through, I just want to like put my head in my hands and just be like, just tune it out and not respond. And I want to like delete the New York Times app on my phone and just focus on my kids and not be a part of that. But I feel like because I have happened into this large following, and I have the good fortune to have, 5 million followers on Instagram or whatever, I feel like I have a little bit of a responsibility to say things, and so there are times when I post something or share something because I feel like it's kind of like my moral responsibility at this point, because I do have a platform, and to not say something when you have a platform would be a corrupt act in and of itself. So that's one aspect of an answer to that question.
I think it's good that you're speaking out.
I mean, I think we all have to. I think the worst thing that could happen is that people cower and start being afraid and stop saying things, because then that actually does give the autocrats real power. But if enough people are willing to keep being vocal, they'll never be able to take away our power. So it's critical that collectively we aren't too fearful to speak.
Yeah. As they say in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
With a modicum of C-list celebrity comes great responsibility.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us again.
It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh shit, this wasn't on.
Oh, scheiße. Well, I'm gonna check now.